Drink in hand, Brandon stood outside, gazing towards the trees. A footpath led through the middle of the trees, but it wound from side to side, and a waist-high wooden fence marked the boundary between the garden and the woodland. The moon was about half full, and it was a clear night, so he could make out quite a lot, including the line of big iron lanterns that he probably ought not to have left studded along the path for so many months. Even if he hadn't lit candles in the things since the sub-hunt. Thinking of that night, and of subsequent nights with Indiana, Brandon felt himself starting to get hard. He ran one hand down the front of his old jeans, lightly teasing the bulge of his cock through the soft, worn fabric. He considered unzipping and jacking off right there, over his own lawn. Nothing and no one would see him, but he supposed it was a little undignified. Primeval masculine ritual, something like that, but it was probably going a step too far. He'd finish the bourbon, go back in, go to bed, and, if the hard-on was still there, take care of it. Just then, he thought he saw a flash of light off to his left. He blinked and stared in the relevant direction. Nothing there. He shrugged and took another swallow of his drink. Then it came again, just at the corner of his vision. He shook his head. Perhaps too long contemplating ghoulies and ghosties was making him see things. Or perhaps there was a poacher in the woods. He wasn't entirely sure what wildlife actually made its home there, still less what proportion of it someone might want to kill and eat. Brandon put down his glass and descended the steps from the terrace, heading for the woods. There definitely shouldn't be anyone or anything making lights flash on his property, and he needed to check out what was going on. Some people, he supposed, probably most people, would have gone back indoors and called the police. Some people might at least have grabbed a torch, or even a carving knife. But then, most people weren't Brandon. 6 feet and 5 inches of well-toned muscle, and not easy to intimidate. Besides, he had his mobile in his jacket pocket. If there was anyone dodgy in the woods, he could call for help if he had to. A couple of minutes into his venture, though, he was already realizing that he might have made a bit of a bad judgment call. Despite the moon, the thick spring growth of the trees was shutting out most of the light, and the ground, even on the path, was uneven enough to make him stagger and stumble around. And the light he'd thought he saw was some way off to the left, so he had to leave the path in order to head in the right direction. Initially, he tried to keep track of where he was going, but there were a few patches of impassably thick undergrowth, and a downed tree that was too big for him to climb over. He told himself that he'd make a few calls in the morning, see about getting somebody in to check the place over. There were probably things that needed doing if he wanted to keep his woods in decent condition. He felt a surge of possessiveness, similar to the one he'd felt while standing on the terrace. His woods, his lands. If there was something wrong here, he was going to deal with it. Strangely, perhaps, his cock was still hard. It didn't matter. He was in harmony with the woods, and they were in harmony with him. And he would find the source of the light any minute now, and then he would... Brandon shook himself and pushed his long, dark hair off his face. His thought processes were getting a bit strange, particularly after just the one drink. Perhaps it was just the general disorientation of being out in the dark among the trees. He carried on walking, less unsure on his feet now, and after a while, he realized that he could hear something more than the faint rustles of leaves and tiny scuffles that seemed to be simply a part of the natural landscape. This sounded like several people, talking together, and he stopped where he was and listened harder. He was aware that he was sweating inside his leather jacket, but at the same time he felt chilled. 1 or 2 images from the Polish horror film crossed his mind, and he tried to push them away as irrelevant, but it wasn't as easy as he expected it to be. The voices rose and fell, and he understood that he was listening to some kind of chant or recitation, not just party chatter. Guided by his ears rather than his eyes, he moved on, speeding up a little, and then he was brought up sharply as his legs slammed into something hard and cold. He tripped and fell with a teeth-rattling bang onto a patch of hard, bare ground. At least the shock of the fall seemed to clear his brain of the spookier ideas that had been creeping into it. "Oh, well done, you fucking idiot," he hissed to himself, sitting up and rubbing his shin and knee. The chanting had stopped, and he wondered if he was about to be mobbed by angry trespassers.